Emotional content is filmed on Whadjuk Noongar land. This podcast acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of country. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Before I start, a little disclaimer. The following episode contains personal stories and reflections shared from my perspective. While I do not mention names, I understand that some listeners familiar with my history may infer the identities of individuals discussed. Please note that this content is based on my personal experiences and interpretations. It is not intended to harm, defame, or discredit anyone. Details have been shared thoughtfully and respectfully, and certain aspects may have been altered for privacy reasons. This podcast is for informational and storytelling purposes only. Come for the stories, stay for the connection. I'm your host, Amy Jane Brand, and this is your weekly dose of emotional content. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Emotional Content. I am not nervous to talk about this. I have been wanting to talk about this for a very long time, but the timing had to be right. And as you get to hear about this story, you'll understand why it is probably, well, so far in my life, it is probably the most wild story I will ever tell. It is an experience that made me almost completely delete my Instagram. And it is the reason why I took such a big hiatus from social media. I touched on it lightly here and there through a couple of episodes, and I said that I would be explaining why. Well, this is that episode where you finally get to find out what happened and the reasons why. And I finally get to speak my truth on it. It has been a very long time coming. This all began in 2021, so we're now in 2025, and I'm happy I'm finally in a place that I can now, because at the time this deeply affected me and it took a huge toll on my mental health, and I really saw myself decline after all of this happened and during, and it was a really scary time for me. I completely lost myself in the process. So yeah, it was a difficult time in my life, and it was completely unexpected. Someone who was previously bullied in school, I never thought I would get that type of situation happen again as an adult. Yeah, it's a story that needs to be told, and I'm looking forward to finally just fucking talking about it, to be honest. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. So in last week's episode, if you haven't listened to it, I suggest that you do, because it will give you a real scope as to what my relationship was like prior to this all happening. So definitely listen to that. If you have listened to it, then this will make a lot of sense to you, and you'll have a good idea of what things were like in my relationship prior to this happening. To be completely transparent, once things ended with my ex, I did keep tabs on what he was doing, on social media, and what the crew that I had just spent the last, 3 years getting to know were doing. So of course I was keeping an eye on what was happening, because I wasn't just breaking up with my ex, I was breaking up with a life and a lifestyle and goals and dreams that I had for America for years before even moving there. And yeah, I was breaking up with a life that I had also been building for myself over there as well, which was really hard to come to terms with, to be honest. Giving that up was just as hard as ending that relationship for me. And I think, like I said in the previous episode, breaking up with America was, a big part of why I probably didn't leave my ex sooner than I should have. So at this point, my ex and I were still in contact. I was still waiting for my belongings to be shipped over. And obviously with COVID and everything, and sending it via sea on a container ship, that took a lot longer than usual. So when organising things for me to live back in Australia, there was bank accounts that needed to be closed and things like that. So yeah, there was still some contact here and there between me and him. I eventually got them, and a few months passed after that, and we're going into about Feb 2021 at this point. And I randomly see this comment pop up on my Instagram that I had been tagged in. And it said something along the lines of, "This looks like a cheaper version of Amy Jane Brand." So obviously it piqued my interest, because I was like, what the fuck is this about? Anyway, I click on it, and this is the first time that I see the girl that tried to single-handedly destroy my life. And at this point, I had no idea that that's what was going to happen. But I was looking at her profile. I was like, that's really weird. Some of these photos look so fucking similar to mine. Like, we're talking posing, lighting. You know, you can go back and look at some of the photos that I took. They were like years ago, obviously 2021. But I was using like a white backdrop sheet because I was back at my mum's. I didn't have the studio kind of loft that I was living in anymore back in LA. So I was using this white backdrop sheet and just working with what I had and making things look cool. Anyway, this girl had done exactly the same backdrop sheet, exactly the same posing, and wearing the exact same lingerie from lounge underwear. It's just looking a little bit weird. So I kind of understand the comment that was made, and I looked at it and I was like, okay, bizarre. Then I look at who's following her and I realised that my ex is following her. So without much investigation, I actually realised that my ex was now in a full-blown relationship with this girl. And I could see comments on some of her most recent photos saying straight up, I love you and I can't wait to marry you one day. Which, look, it was a shock. It was a lot to process. I think we had both moved on quickly after I ended things, which I don't believe in a time limit as to when people should and shouldn't move on. And I had obviously moved on quickly as well. So that wasn't what triggered me. What triggered me was seeing those kind of comments and, you know, displaying that kind of affection publicly and being so quick to say those things to somebody else online as well was a slap in the face. And to be honest, it didn't feel authentic. It felt very performative when I was reading it. So from there, I decided to ask somebody within our mutual friend group about this girl and see if everybody in America knew about her, but, you know, I just wasn't aware. And the bizarre part about that is nobody actually knew about this relationship. I was pretty much the first one to pick up on it. So that was bizarre because people knew about my relationship that I was friends with over here, but nobody knew about his. So once I had realised that nobody else in our circle of mutual friends had known about the relationship, I then decided to approach him about it. So I had already got all of my stuff back. To be honest, in hindsight, there was absolutely no point in me hitting him up and being pissed off about this. But I did. We had a conversation about it and he basically downplayed the relationship, which was completely as expected. But I feel like most people would be pretty pissed off when they see that like public show pony display of love and affection, whether it's, you know, honest or authentic or not. It's just like a slap in the face. And to be honest, looking back at it, I really feel like it was done out of spite and it was super performative. It just felt really intentional and spiteful. And I still put it down to him being pissed off that I was the one to leave. And he just simply didn't think that I was going to ever do that. So this felt spiteful, and I think that's why I bit back at it. After we had spoken, that is when I decided to block him, and we did not have any further contact after that. And this is where one of the worst years of my life actually began. Oh my gosh, it gets so bad. You guys just don't even know what's coming. So after that comment was made on Instagram, it felt like an internal war between fan pages blew up. Now, most of you won't know about it, but if you are a Chainsmokers fan, this was definitely like a younger demographic of fans that had all of these fan pages and they did artwork and it was all very sweet. It was all sweet when I was in it. When I was out of it and I felt the full force of their rage towards me, it was not so much fun. But yeah, it's a lot of more underage kids that are behind these pages, and a lot more random pages started popping up, which was bizarre because I knew like the main ones that had quite, you know, a strong loyal following. But then a bunch of these new ones popped up out of nowhere, which was really bizarre. It was like fan pages for my ex and his new girlfriend and idolizing them and doing all this artwork for them, which was really strange. Obviously, there was fan pages for me and my ex as well back then. They were all really upset about the breakup and stuff, and they were all very sweet. So there ended up being this bizarre war that started going on, but there was just more and more pages popping up, and I was getting tagged in all kinds of shit. I started getting all of these random DMs that were quite nasty. Basically, people were just like choosing sides out of nowhere, and it was like a war between me and her, and people pitting us against each other. What I did notice was these pages that were popping up that were really aggressive all used the same kind of language. And it was something that I picked up on. I was like, okay, these pages all fucking hate me. And they all just seem to be quite similar in one way or another. So that's where I got the impression that this girl had not only made Chainsmokers fan pages to try and look like there's a bunch of people against me, but she also looked like she was the one behind making the fan pages about her and my ex, which was really fucking strange because that is a lot of different accounts. I'm talking like a lot of accounts that were made specifically just for the agenda of basically trying to make my life a living hell. What made it worse is that the legitimate Chainsmokers fan pages actually started choosing sides and jumping on board as well. So when there was 20 pages, it started turning into like 50 pages. So it was just account after account that I was blocking. And the thing that got really crazy and did start to trigger me quite heavily was out of nowhere. I don't know if you guys know about this, okay, because I absolutely did not know about this. There was these DMs that looked like they were coming from me that were being generated and posted on all these different fan pages' stories. So then the legitimate fan pages, they were jumping on board and thinking that they were real. So basically, she had generated fake conversations that she had apparently had with me and was starting to post them everywhere. And it was me either talking to these underage fan pages about her, or it was me directly contacting her and basically bullying her. And it got really nasty. These were fabricated, photoshopped. I had no fucking clue that people could do that. Like, call me naive. I didn't know people could do that. And I'd never seen anyone in Australia be the victim of it before. If you have been a victim of something like this before, please DM me about it because it sent me into a fucking spiral. Like, I genuinely didn't know what to do because people were believing it. And I wasn't the type of person to go and do that back. I also wasn't planning on having a direct conversation with this girl because it's my ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. Like, why would I want to have a conversation with her? So anyway, this is what caused an internal war and created a very hostile environment for my social media. Every single time I was online, there was something, whether it was a comment I was being tagged in, whether it was a story that I was being tagged in, being called a bully, being told that like I'm too old for this kind of behavior and I need to act like an adult, blah, blah, blah. It was just like, at this time I had just turned 30 and she was around 21. Obviously, yeah, like if I was doing that, then it would have been really poor form, but I absolutely wasn't. And I was literally just trying to move on with my life over here in Perth. But it seemed really bizarre that this was being allowed to happen. Like when it was happening, I was thinking, fuck, I'm not going to message my ex about this because I refused to hit him up about his new girlfriend again. I did it once because of his public display, but I'm not stooping to this petty shit. So I hadn't spoken to him about it, but I definitely told my friends because I started to struggle with the concept of these fake conversations being posted about me. At this point, I continued working. I was doing my thing. I had my brand deals. I was still very active on social media. But the only problem is every single time I was active, something else would flare up. Every single time I posted a new photo, I would then get copied in one way or another, whether it was the photo itself a couple of days later, whether it was the caption, whether it was a story. It was just crazy. Literally, even the way that I would say like new post on my stories, this girl would do it the exact same way. And I was informed about this because when I told my friends what was happening, obviously they were keeping tabs. Every single day it felt like it was escalating. So they were keeping tabs on it and I was very frequently updated with what was happening. Unfortunately, it absolutely was not going to end at this point. We are only just getting started, people. This is the tip of the motherfucking iceberg. From here, it was very obvious that she started hitting up brands that I was working with. She obviously had some followers and would have been capable of potentially getting work, but she had taken it upon herself to start getting work with the same brands that I had had contracts with for years, one of them in particular being Lounge Underwear. I was so tempted to hit up Lounge Underwear about this because obviously I had built a long-term business relationship with these people. But again, I was like, no, don't be petty. It's really not that big of a deal. It's not like she's taking work from you. Keep that in mind when I say it's not like she's taking work from you for later in the story. So I left it. Whether she was getting sent the lingerie for free or not, there was some kind of collaboration happening there. What was annoying was Lounge Underwear was obviously approving these photos, and the photos were extremely similar, if not identical, to some of the ones that I was doing during my contract with them at that time. However, it did get worse. Every single part of this gets worse. The best example of this happening would have to be the Jagger and Stone saga. All of you listening probably know the brand Jagger and Stone by Lucy and Nikki, who also have their own podcast. And obviously I'm friends with the girls. We don't chat like personally all the time anymore. But at that point, I was pretty close with them, and I was informed of this girl apparently doing what looked like some kind of campaign shoot for Jagger and Stone. And this was over in LA, and the shoot happened in the studio house of the Chainsmokers, and it was made to look like, you know, this had been done specifically for Jagger and Stone. And I just knew straight off the bat, there's just no way. When I saw the images, it was very off-brand for Jagger and Stone. It did not look like any of their work, even the photography. It just wasn't their level of work. So I knew that this was pretty fucking bullshit when I saw it. So obviously I went and hit up Lucy and Nikki from Jagger and Stone, and I had to ask the girls, what's the go with this chick? Anyway, the girls confirmed with me that she had purchased the clothes herself. There was no PR sent, and this shoot was absolutely nothing to do with Jagger and Stone. It's something that she had done herself and was simply tagging the company. And they also told me that since these photos had been taken and posted, they had a bunch of weird accounts kind of trying to force them to repost the images. So the extent that this girl went to in order to simply just be posted on the Jagger and Stone Instagram, where I was also being posted for having legitimate collaborations with them, was fucking diabolical, to be honest. So on top of purchasing the clothes herself, getting a photographer, claiming that it was a campaign shoot online and tagging Jagger and Stone everywhere, she had also taken it upon herself to get some of her now minions that hated me, and probably some of her own fake fan pages that she had control of, to start hitting up the Jagger and Stone page saying hey, you should repost her photos, and basically trying to make it so her photos ended up on the feed and I would see them. And obviously she had no idea that I was literally friends with the girls behind that brand. So yeah, I felt a bit embarrassed for her for going to that extent and me finding out about it. So during this time, I was obviously a lot more active on social media, and I was definitely more active over on Twitter. With Twitter, I was on there posting, and one day I was like, shit, I better actually try and find her Twitter and block her on here as well. It's kind of hard to find people on Twitter if your username isn't actually your name. So I had to do a little bit of a search for her, but I came across her account, and the most fucking bizarre thing, I could see all of these status updates that were either almost identical to the ones I had written, or they were almost answering back to what I was posting. And I was putting the two together and just looking back and forth going, what the actual fuck has been going on over here that I didn't know about? I would say something, and within a few hours, she had posted the same thing in her own words. Even knowing that I was going to block her, which I did, I blocked her immediately after reading through it. I then realized that this wasn't going to stop regardless. It didn't matter how many places I blocked this girl directly. She probably had 10 other fucking fake accounts to watch me on. So this next part really pisses me off, and it actually still feels kind of triggering to talk about it, because this did have not only an impact on my mental health, but also my partner's. And I'm just really protective of the people that I love. And this was a very difficult part of the story for us to go through collectively as a couple. Like, this was very testing, but this girl was pretty good at finding information about people online. I will say that much. She obviously had a lot of time on her hands to do it. So my partner is not big on social media. It's one of the things that I absolutely love about this relationship, is that he is not revolving his life around social media, and he just has like private accounts and just lives his life offline. So my partner out of nowhere starts getting these anonymous text messages sent to him. And this has never happened before. I've never experienced it before. Like, if someone was going to send me a fucked up text message or start trolling me in some way, it would usually be like a phone number. It's just, I don't have that number. Do you know what I mean? Like, this was literally coming up as unknown number, which is so creepy as well. And it just like gives you the ick. So you can't track it, and it's saying whatever it wants to you. Well, that happened, and it started happening to his number. And we're thinking, where could his number possibly be online for this girl to get it? Because it was her. She started immediately talking about how I'm cheating with my ex on him. Fucking get real. I literally have moved across the fucking world. The last thing I want to do is go back to him. Okay. And also, it's COVID. We're on lockdown. It would take me a plane ride to get over there and to do that. And I had nothing to hide on my phone or any conversations. We were not talking. So anyway, it was her, and she had got his number, and we figured out where it was. It was on his Facebook. He had it public. Obviously, it didn't matter when he was in his circle of like his crew over here. Like, there was no issues with his number being online. So it never popped up. Like, no one was like, yo, found your number on Facebook kind of thing. But yeah, it was there. And she had found it, and she had got her claws into it and did every single thing possible she could to try and cause problems with our relationship. And the thing that really fucked me up about it was I really wanted to have a quieter life, and I didn't want to date somebody like my ex where there would be those potential dramas again. But then, you know, I'm dating this new guy, and he's never been with someone in my line of work before, and I just felt like it didn't look great. It was like, oh, awesome, I'm dating a fucking influencer now, and this is what it comes with. And it just looked bad. It felt bad. It was shit. Even though it wasn't my fault, you know, it wasn't nice. Like, you don't want that kind of energy going into a new relationship. And I had no control over it. Like, I had zero control over that. And he didn't want to change his number, because it's like, changing a number is a big fucking effort as well. It was something that we had discussed, but you know, after months of it, like we changed the numbers. But for him to be directly involved like that really pissed me off. Things definitely continued to get worse when it came to the fake conversations, which I found the most triggering, because people were believing it. And, you know, why wouldn't you believe it? Because, I mean, as far as I was aware, I didn't know that you could make those fake conversations up, but they were literally being generated on apps, on websites. So they started to get really nasty, and they started claiming, basically, it made it look like I was saying nasty things about my ex straight up online. And it also made it look like I was saying horrible things about other people in our mutual friend group, like the chain smokers circle of people. And at that point, I'd fucking had enough. Like, I had had enough. I had done every single thing that I could to not hit him up, to have a conversation about what was going on. He was getting tagged in these stories as well, mind you. So my ex was aware of what was going on. Okay, I'm just going to say that. He was aware of what was going on. He was being tagged in this stuff. And we had never had this kind of dramas within the Chainsmokers fan pages, personal fan pages. There had never been this level of aggression ever. I was avoiding hitting my ex up because I don't want to look like the ex-girlfriend that's hitting him up about the new girlfriend, because honestly, it could always be taken the wrong way, me saying anything. But at this point, I had had enough. It made it look like I was saying nasty things about people I actually respected and cared about. So I was done. So I decided to send a text message, and I had not blocked his number at this point. I had blocked him on all social media. So I decided to hit him up via text. Anyway, I said like, hey, I just want to let you know that there's some things popping up online, which I know you've seen, but none of this is coming from my side. This is fabricated. These words have not come out of my mouth. I wouldn't speak about any of you in that manner, especially posting it online. And I just want to see if this can get sorted out because it's all getting really ridiculous now. You've obviously moved on. I've obviously moved on. We both don't need these kind of dramas right now. And that's when I realized I had been blocked. My text message did not go through. My number had been blocked. So then I was like, okay, that's weird. All right, I'll send an email. And I know this guy sees every single email, okay? Like I had seen him work for almost 6 years of us dating. So I was very well aware that he did not miss an email, but he decided not to say anything back to me. And I thought to myself, okay, well, if he's not going to say anything back to me, fine. If he's not going to reply to me, all good. Just have to, swallow that pill. But as long as there's some kind of intervening with his girlfriend to figure out what the fuck is going on or to, do some kind of investigation so this stops, do something on your end for this to stop, then that's okay. I don't have to have a conversation. I just want this shit to end. Nothing ended. In fact, it just continued to escalate. And that really sent me into a spiral. From my perspective, it felt like he was potentially enjoying the bullying that I was going through. When we were dating, I used to get really annoyed about people copying like my content online. And he knew my history with being bullied as well. So it's just seems a little bit strange to me that all of this was allowed to continue when it would have taken not much from his end for it to stop. He was very capable of hitting girls up behind my back on social media. Why wouldn't you be capable of having a conversation with me quickly to sort this out? So some of the other things that these pages were doing, i.e. her behind fake accounts, was posting photos of her and myself and getting people to like rate who's hotter, which is just so pathetic and just so wrong. Like, you're not a girl's girl doing that shit. Like, it's very immature and just foul. While this was all going on, my friends were also starting to be targeted as well. So she started going for like my inner circle of people. And I'm very happy for one thing that my family aren't really on social media. They kind of stay off it or they have really private accounts. My family wasn't directly hit with all of this backlash, but some of my friends were. So they started going through, adding any of my friends that were private, and then started sending message requests if they didn't accept it, or they would send DMs if they started following them, if they were public, abusing them about how they looked, about being friends with me. How could they be friends with such a bully? She's a fraud. She doesn't care about people's mental health, blah, blah, blah. It was just every single day somebody, whether it was myself, my friends, my partner, were getting hit up by this girl. Things started to get really dark from here. And this part is really quite triggering. And it was really shocking for me as well. Like, this rattled me a lot. And the depth of hate towards me and not knowing me as a person at all was really strong to be able to do this. It's a major form of slut shaming, and it's considered illegal now. So, I mean, it was considered illegal then. I didn't give permission for these photos to be posted, but this girl was behind making a page. It was called Amy Jane Brand Exposed. And she had gone ahead and posted some topless photos of me. This was on Instagram. So the photos were quite pixelated. And I think that was the reason why Instagram didn't immediately pick up on it and get them taken down. But not only did this have nude photos of me posted directly on this account, this public account, it also had a bunch of photos that she had found from me being tagged, whether it was like a photo with a follower or a photo from me getting my makeup done, like before starting the makeup or whatever, with, no makeup on. Going and trying to find photos of me at my most unflattering. Yeah, she was posting them all, basically saying I'm ugly, that I'm a slut, that I'm just a bully. Like, it just continued. I did not know about this account until I actually had a young follower of mine message me and say, hey, just want to let you know. It's like this sweet girl that was trying to be so polite about it. And she was like, I just want to let you know that I've just come across this Instagram account and it's got some naked photos of you on there that I don't know if you would want online or not. So the fact that she had put it as Amy Jane Brand Exposed, if you put my name in the search bar, then this was going to pop up as well. I really didn't handle this very well. I was so freaked out by the fact that Instagram had just let these photos stay up. I had all of my friends go on there and try and report the account, report the photos. Nothing was being taken down. It was constantly saying it didn't violate the terms and conditions, which was fucking bullshit. In the end, I ended up having to go onto Facebook because it was, obviously owned by Meta. Went on there, had to fill out this form, had to give my passport, had to explain what was happening. It took a while to fill out this form, and I had to then sit and patiently wait for this page to be taken down. And I'm like freaking out, being like, fuck, I've just got no power. This girl has literally managed to do something that I wouldn't dream of doing to somebody else. This girl has literally found photos of me and is slut shaming me anywhere that she can, which was fucking heartbreaking. Like, I didn't give permission for those photos to be on the internet. You've got a hold of them and now you're doing this. And it's like, I really didn't know what to do. Like, she's on the other side of the world. Thankfully, after a few days, Instagram did take it down and I could breathe again. Now, in case you're thinking, hey, AJ, how did you know that it was definitely her behind that account? Well, firstly, I had a gut feeling. And secondly, when this account first came up, I started trying to do some digging to figure out who was behind it and obviously tried to log into the account. And back then it would show you like a big chunk of the email address minus a couple with, just asterisks covering like the last couple of numbers or letters or whatever. So you could see where this email was going. Anyway, something happens later on in this story where I end up seeing what email that is. And that email also came up a few times with other accounts that were being made because I would try it with all of them to be like, who's behind this account? Obviously I was doing some investigating of my own. Me and my partner were, and my friends, everybody was trying to do whatever they could to help. So the email address ended up lining up with her, but you'll hear the rest of the story and you'll understand even further with that one. Next up came the harassment from her mother. Yes, her own mother ended up getting involved in this, and she took a really immature approach with it as well. Her mum getting involved the way that she did was really disgusting, and quite frankly, she should be ashamed of herself. I never had a direct conversation with her mum, by the way. I didn't talk to anybody. I kept my mouth shut and I suffered in silence with this whole thing. So her mother decided to start posting all kinds of different comments on these young chain smokers fan pages. These kids are underage. Like, this is an older woman having conversations with a bunch of riled up kids about me, and she was posting it publicly anywhere she wanted, just talking shit about me, saying what I'm doing is illegal and they're going to take legal action, and somebody my age should be ashamed of themselves for bullying her daughter. It's so fucking ridiculous. And she ended up getting a bunch of her older male friends to start DMing me as well and jump in on those comments that were being publicly made. They were threatening me to say that they're going to take legal action and they're also going to have my account hacked and removed from me, and that they know people. So this was my main source of income, and I felt very protective of that, and it did freak me out at the time. I was thinking, fuck, the last thing I need right now is to have some 50-year-old plus men all banding against me to get my account taken from me. As much as I don't want to admit it, I was very consumed by this whole thing, and it was deeply affecting me and my life. So I felt a lot more hit with hearing things like that. Like, if someone said that to me now, I wouldn't even fucking bat an eyelid. But, back then it was really triggering me constantly. So I went down a bit of a rabbit hole looking into this girl's mother, and I found some stuff that felt very contradicting of posting about me, for starters. her mother did some acting in her day, and she has some sex scenes from different movies that you can find online very easily, as well as nude photos, that type of stuff. And I'm not the type to ever comment on that type of thing because, like, I don't give a shit. I used to be a skimpy. It's like not something I care about. Like, all the power to you. If you want to do that line of work, amazing. Like, you got to do acting, cool, that's awesome. But the reason why I'm saying that is because her daughter was slut shaming me with some nude images, but she would have known about her mum's line of work. That's kind of weird to me. Like, why are you slut shaming me when your own mother has done it? So obviously there was the fake DMs that were being generated, which was a head fuck and a half. But then there was these were made really badly. I just have to say that. These were a bunch of close friends' stories that were being posted. It was very obviously done with, like, I don't know, looked like paint, not Photoshop. It literally looked like paint. Some of them looked kind of believable, others didn't. I didn't take too much notice of this, but what was being posted was making it look like it was my ex saying it from his close friends' stories. So he was basically trash talking me, and it was being posted everywhere, which is just so fucking stupid. Like, he would never do his own dirty work. That's one thing I will say. If anyone was going to do it, somebody else would do it. He would never be the one to publicly post something like that because it isn't professional, right? So I knew that it wasn't real. But what was triggering me was the fact that he was being tagged in it again. We were all being tagged in it again, and nothing stopped from his end. Nothing was stopping. Words were being put in his mouth and nothing was stopping. Like, wouldn't you do something to try and stop this shit at that point? Like, it's making so many different people look bad, including yourself. Like, wouldn't you go, okay, hang on, where the fuck is this coming from? Guys, I can't tell you the frustration I felt at the time. I was thinking, surely by this point, this shit is going to end. This has to be the point where this shit ends. It does not. This part of the story is kind of funny, but it's also a part that pissed me off beyond belief. This was so infuriating at the time. Now I can laugh at it, but remember when I said about her not taking work from me? Well, we're going to get into that part. So one day, minding my own business, and I get the little cha-ching sound from Shopify. You'll remember that there was a time where a lot of people were selling Lightroom presets. And if you don't know what that is, they are basically a filter that you put over your photos, and you buy different packs of them and people make them. Now, I had a presets business. I still do. I've just got it paused at the moment on the website. But anyway, my business was called Branded Presets, and it was successful. It was doing really well, and it was a really fun and enjoyable part of my job, and it was a nice passive income that was coming in. Anyway, I get this little cha-ching sound pop up and I'm like, oh, okay, another sale, awesome. And I look at it and it was a big one. It was like somebody had just purchased all of the presets. I'm just laughing because I feel like you guys are already going to know what I'm going to say. I look at the charge, I look at the invoice, and it kind of looks a little bit weird. I'm like, that looks a little bit fake. The name looks a little bit strange. And I actually went back into Shopify so I could get the exact details of this for you because it's funny. Anyway, it was from Jack Work. I'm like, I get some gay men purchase, my presets, but a gay man called Jack Work. I don't know, like the last name Work. I'm like, I don't know. And it's from Los Angeles. Yeah, it looks a little bit fishy. So I decide to start looking into this charge. So it was obviously from LA, and they had put an address, because you have to put an address, not a phone number. You don't have to put a phone number, but you do have to put a physical address, even for an online product. Luckily, I had that option on my Shopify account at the time. So I decide to do some digging. Now, this email, jackwork with a bunch of numbers at gmail.com, also lined up with the same email address that was behind the account posting nude photos of me. You can see where this is going, right? The funniest part about this was the fact that I put that address into Google and the photos to her family home popped up everywhere, cross-referenced them with some of her stories on her Instagram, and it was her. You can't get away from that. I'm sorry. The fucking kitchen that you're posting with my ex and you standing in it is the same kitchen popping up with this address that I'm putting into Google. It came up with the full Zillow profile. It was the same house. It was your mum's house, your family home, and you've just been stupid enough to go and use that address on my business. So she purchased all of my presets. Like, there's no getting away from that. You fucking purchased them all, and then you decided to magically, a couple of weeks later, I think it was a couple of weeks or like 10 days, just magically start selling presets. And all of my presets were being sold. On top of that, it's so ridiculous. Can you imagine how pissed I was at the time though? Like how pissed off I was at the time. Like I was raging and I was suffering in complete silence with this. Nobody knew what was happening online. The details of each pack. So because of course I went on a fucking website. Of course I was going to check this out. Like who wouldn't? Who wouldn't after all this shit? Absolutely, I'm going to find out what's going on. So yeah, it confirmed everything further. It had all of the details of each pack, exactly the same as mine. And then the name of each pack was like a slightly altered version of my original ones. It was so infuriating to see it all at the time. It was like just a complete carbon copy of what I had done, but in her own gothic style. At this point, I had so many friends of mine in the industry. They were influencers and they were saying to me, you should really put this girl on blast and just let everyone know what the fuck has been going on. And I did understand what they were saying, but at the same time, you know, people obviously they would have loved the drama, and I just had my business stolen. So I was quite tempted at that point to post about it and be like, this is fucking bullshit. I was angry because I did look into it in regards to like legal action, and I hadn't copyrighted anything, and I would have had to go through like serious copywriting to have those assets of mine protected. In the end, because I didn't have any legal standing with the presets and I had had enough of the whole thing, this had been going on for months and months, I actually decided to try and contact the police, and I did go to the police station to sit down and chat with someone about it. I told them everything that had been going on. I showed them evidence of different things, screenshots I had been keeping, recording of everything that was happening just in case I might have needed it, which I think I would have to say is a smart idea for anybody that's potentially going through this kind of bullying or harassment online. Like, take note of every single thing and just put it in a file, because you never know when you might need it. But yeah, I did go to the police, and unfortunately there wasn't anything that they could do because she was over on the other side of the world and she hadn't directly threatened my life. So yeah, it was quite a slap in the face when there was just nothing that could be done. And it just goes to show, like, there isn't enough laws around fully protecting, especially the younger generation that are going through this level of harassment and bullying. I felt helpless as an adult. The fact that I actually went to the police about this just goes to show how severely this impacted my day-to-day life. Fuck, I was going through COVID like everybody else. My mum had a really bad accident in April. She came off of her bike and hit her face into the road, ripped her face up, had injuries all over her body and a brain bleed. And I was dealing with that as well while she was recovering from that injury. So there was so much that was going on this year. I didn't deal with it well. Like, if that type of thing happened now, it never could have escalated the way it did because I wouldn't be vulnerable to it. Things did escalate even further from here, and you guys are going to probably hate me for it, but this is going to be a 2-part series. So if you want to know what happens next, because there's a lot, we haven't finished yet, you have to tune into next week's episode. So I will see you next Tuesday, 5 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, sharp, for the second half of this story. I love you guys, and I'll probably chat to you this week about everything that's been going on. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have gone through anything similar. I love you guys. Mwah. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please give it a share. You never know who might need a little emotional content in their life. For daily feel-good posts, follow @_emotional content on Instagram and TikTok. And don't forget to hit that follow button so you're notified every time a new episode drops. Your support means the absolute world to me.